All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. It's been a minute. Been more than a minute. Had a couple of vacations. Not me, unfortunately, but the two of you. I love this is the time of year. I love when people post their photos of their vacations. And Pat, I know you just got back from Key West, a vacation place. I didn't see any of your photos. I don't
Yeah.
just staying
Listen,
up the socials. You don't want to keep it low.
yeah, keep it low.
Yeah.
Vacation,
Right.
relaxation. I don't know if you can hear
Yeah.
it in my voice how much relaxing I did. So yeah, it
Right.
was great. It's a great
Yeah.
time.
I don't know if you noticed. But Brian also went on vacation. He posted some photos, and for me, you want to see palm trees, you want to see like a beach, you want to see a
Yeah.
historical site,
Yeah.
a
Yep. Yep. Yep.
coliseum.
Yep.
Um, he was vacationing in Champaign, Illinois, um, which to me, I don't know, it'd be like going to it's like going to like the 18th best Big Ten. It was West Lafayette booked or something. I mean, what like these photos pop up, and I don't want to vacation shame you, Brian. You got to go where you got to go. I'm just curious, I don't know. You relax in Champagne. Did you see something fun there?
How do you know I wasn't there on official business? Maybe I'm doing a little covert
Okay,
spying. Maybe I'm, you don't know. I mean, I would be a
fair.
very bad spy considering I posted the photos,
I'm
but you'll
about
never
to
know what I'm
say
doing there.
poor
Um,
strategy.
I just wanted to, I just wanted to see the Balkans, see what they're like this time of year, and do some advanced scouting.
Okay.
Also, my body was in Champagne, my mind and my heart were in Lisbon because
Oh
Sporting,
God.
the biggest club in
Too
Portugal,
soon.
won the double, baby. Just to update our fans who I know are dying to know what happened after our last episode.
Only
Portuguese champions of the league, domestic cup champions, dramatic fashion, the whole shebang.
we're only 1 minute and 53 seconds into this, and you're already half our audience has already hit the off button. Just keep on. He's going to talk for another 30 seconds, I'm sure, about this. Just hit the fast forward button, folks. We'll get through this. Go ahead, get
Well,
it out of your system.
I just wanted to satisfy everyone's curiosity why I was in Illinois in May. My girlfriend is from Illinois. She had a work conference in Champaign. That's why I was in Champaign, and we used that to our advantage. Last year was in Wisconsin. This year was in Champaign to go visit her parents and spend some time there. So I did not, out of my own volition, decide, you know where I want to go? I don't want to go to Maui. I don't want to go to Bora Bora. I want to go to Champaign, Illinois. That was not quite the process.
That's too bad. I was kind of hoping that was. I've always wanted to go to Champagne. Last time I was there was the first time the latest I ever got to a game. Me and Ryan Dunleavy, when we were coming to be, we got a noon start. We got there at 11:52, and those 8 minutes, we're like, oh man, seeing a lot of time here on our hands before this kickoff. All right.
It's a
Anyway,
lovely drive. I've heard about
it's
how
a
bad the drive to
lovely
Champaign is.
drive. Drive
Well,
from where?
when you drive 14 hours from New Jersey to Chicago, the 3-hour drive down to Champaign is lovely.
Oh, okay. I guess so. It wasn't lovely when we did it, put it that way. I mean, it's not State College, but still, it wouldn't be high on my list of places I have to return to. And yet, there it is on the schedule this year. Okay. All right. We got a lot to talk about that's actually happening here. Got a new president since we have recorded last. We got a ton of football news, recruiting. It seems like every 2 minutes, Greg Shannon gets another recruit. But I want to start with what's happening right now. I think as we speak, we're interviewing an athletic director candidate. Finally, we're going to get there to the finish line of this. Here's what we know, fellas. We know that they're down to a few people. And we know that the search is almost exclusively, I don't know about exclusive, but has targeted people in the sports business world, non-traditional ADs. It is far more likely, based on everyone I talk to, that they're going to hire someone from that realm rather than hiring someone from another athletic department. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts? Is that a good move? Is that something you can get behind?
Well, yes, if that is what the president, who's going to be this person's boss, can get behind. I think you mentioned that a bit in your reporting on Saturday. And we had discussed this yesterday, just like if you're going to wait all this time to pursue an athletic director because you want the president to be in place to be able to approve the hire, and then the president doesn't want whatever you're looking at right now, it feels like there's a bit of a congruence there. So that's going to be an interesting wrinkle to this whole process. As far as hiring the non-traditional person, we talked about this on the last pod. It's a direction you can go, right? I think we can look at the two Big Ten schools that just hired ADs now. Maryland went non-traditional. Michigan State went with a proven, young, energized AD from Georgia Tech. I think both sides are valid. I just think that whatever side you pick, you kind of got to go all in and not half measure.
I just think there couldn't be a more perfect time to go the non-traditional route because we are in the latest non-traditional era of college athletics. No one's ever seen this before. So what better to have someone who thinks differently, who wasn't stuck with a traditional mindset. I think it's the perfect time to do some experimenting and go outside the box. So I think I was always kind of supportive of finding someone from a professional league who understood contracts and payments and things like that. So I thought like that general manager route would be a really special hire for Rutgers.
I'm on board with that, but it's got to be the right experience. This is kind of how I feel about it. I want to see someone who's a revenue generator in his career, someone who understands this moment, someone who's at a point in their career, upward trajectory. Like, I don't want to hire a guy who's a non-traditional guy just because this is what we decided to do. Right. Like, it's got to be the best candidate as well. And the one thing I will say on the other side of this is that Rutgers has never hired an AD. Like, he's just never gone out and said, you know what, let's get someone who's done this. And when I saw the Michigan State hire, Jay Batt from Georgia Tech, here you go, guy who's been in the seat of one of these, major athletic departments, who's raised money down there, who's done this job, who has done the job well, who had experience in Alabama, who's on the front lines of the House settlement deal, like just an elite guy on the way up. I said, okay. That's a strong hire. It's very hard to nitpick that. Maryland, though, is the same thing. You're right. It's Jim Smith, someone MLB background, but someone who had a long stint at Ohio State in one of the elite athletic departments, who learned how that works there as well. So both of them have, experience, in a big place that's won a lot. And I got to say this, both of them did that in the Michigan State, less than a month. They went from firing the old AD to hiring the new one. Maryland, like less than 40 days. Here we are, Rutgers. We're like, it's wild. They've got to get this wrapped up. I will say that it's time to move on.
Let alone how long the search has been since Pat Hobbs resigned. I think those searches wrapped up quicker than Rutgers, since they've hired a search firm to replace Pat Hobbs.
Pretty much.
Again, unique circumstances. Rutgers didn't have a president, so I understand all of that. But to your point, it does sound like it won't last throughout the rest of the summer. It should be wrapped up relatively soon.
You would think before we record our next episode, there will be an AD. So
you would hope, right? More important than the prototype of the hire, like whether it's traditional, non-traditional, whatever. We've said this before. It should be someone who is forward-thinking and who is able to work with the massive changes, the constant changes in college athletics, and who isn't just kind of stuck in one way and is able to adapt. I'm curious to see if they're able to do that. I'm curious to see how they will work with the coaches. I know, is this the traditional athletic director? Is it collaboration? Is it one who kind of makes the decisions for the department? And I'm curious to see, and I'm just spitballing here, I don't really know if this will happen, but like, are there any changes to the structure of the athletic department, right? Like, are there going to be general managers across sports, or is there going to be a general manager for the entire department? Is there going to be a general manager at all? Are there going to be other non-traditional roles hired? I don't know, but I'm curious to see not only what the athletic director is, but how the athletic department looks. And will there be any cuts? Because a lot of athletic departments around the country are cutting to save money to spend on revenue sharing, because for years, these athletic departments had money to spend. They just hire people and spend money on facilities. And now that they have to actually spend money on athletes, they got to downsize. I'm curious if that'll happen at Rutgers.
Yep. And if you come from one of these places, Pat, that non-traditional, you've got to be able to find people to put in these executive roles as well. Like, that's the question I have. If you come from a background that's not in an athletic department, who are you going to bring in? Because Rutgers has vacancies now. I mean, Sean Tucker leaving, Kate Hickey leaving, people on the executive team that will have to be replaced. I'd be curious to see how that person identifies and brings in talent around him or her, because it's not just one person.
Absolutely. I think when say this candidate does come from the, like a general manager of a, professional league or whatever, I think there's great people around them that have been in talent, scouting departments for a long time, and they've been in general finance and things like that. So I think That's a very important part of this all. And there's also great people in place for the two great programs too, right? Like Greg Schiano is going to be ultimately that general manager for football. Who would be better than, acquiring talent, understanding payroll. I think we talk about Rutgers playing from behind a lot. I think in this situation, Rutgers is so far ahead from a football, like understanding what's coming and being proactive in that situation, because Schiano's done a great job from that aspect.
You tore up Key West, didn't you? I'm just listening to you right now. That's my big takeaway from this podcast so far. Brian, you look like you just came back rested, ready to go, vacation in Champaign. You got some sleep. But Pat's back from Key West, and it's just like you destroyed. There's a wreckage.
It was wreckage. Well, the thing is, too, I mean, I got home at our, flight delays it's everything, right? It's horrible. So we were supposed to get in at like 8:00 last night. We got home at 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow, it's been a quick turnaround here.
There you go. Okay. All right. Well, he's playing hurt. I respect it. I do respect you coming on this.
Thank you.
We could have pushed it another day, but I'm glad. Good for you. that shows resolve here for our listeners. All right. New president. Let's talk about William F. Tate. I'm going to call him Bill. I think people call him Bill, but William Tate from LSU. My first reaction to this, it felt like a hire concocted at a football tailgate. Knowing the people involved, it might have been a hire concocted at a football tailgate. They went out and got LSU's president, threw out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium already. Sports guy, you hear him talk about it. I mean, there's a quote that's going around about like, I didn't have participation trophies growing up. He's saying the right things about athletics. If you are an athletics fan only for Rutgers, like you don't really care about anything else, then you have to be head over heels about this hire. I mean, a guy who's been in a place, who knows how to do this. What were your first impressions of this, Brian?
Yeah, on the athletic side, as I'm sure everyone saw the Paul Feinbaum interview he did. I'm sure everyone saw like the posts on Twitter of him at every sporting event, from women's basketball to football and everything, right? But I think it's one thing to see that at LSU. I've heard at Rutgers, since he's arrived, it's only been a couple of weeks, he's already made a point to go to the APC and meet everybody from Steve Peichel to anyone working in the building. And I believe, I don't know this for sure, I believe he's done the same with football, but just to make it a point to introduce himself and be around people there. I think that shows a clear desire to get involved with athletics, be a visible presence. And I think what helps him there is that he is very personable from what I can tell on the outside, right? I've never met the guy, but my understanding of his interactions and what I see in interviews is he's a guy who he's a normal guy, for a lack of a better term. Not to say Jonathan Holloway and Robert Barchi weren't normal guys, but they didn't really seem to be, as personable. I keep using that word. And I think that's beneficial to have a guy.
You want a beer with Bob Barchi. That's what you're trying to say. Yeah, it's just a different kind of dude. Yeah.
The wanting to have a beer with this guy scale is increasing with every president at Rutgers. The next president's going to be some, former head of a fraternity or something. That's the direction we're going.
It's going to be Norm. I will say this, and this is the other side of it. And I had this. This is not me just coming up with this. I had this vibe from a lot of old-timey Rutgers guys, and they're concerned about the LSU part of it. Like you're taking a president from the 179th ranked university in the country and replacing him. Jonathan Holloway was a dean at Yale and the Northwestern provost. So it is a shift. Like I don't know. I mean, it's all about the dude, and I don't think it's going to impact Rutgers' standing in the U.S. News and World Report rankings. But I mean, it's interesting. If I were a graduate, Pat, you're a graduate. Did you have questions about that? Did you think,
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is not that LSU is a bastion of education. It's a bastion of Southern living and a different lifestyle and educational process. I just will say, from what I listened to and from hearing him speak, he sounded he checked every box from that aspect. He says all the right things. One of the big things I listened in the Feinbaum interview was when he was talking about finding your genius. He's like, people that are student athletes, they're already the highest succeeders, most successful people in their field. Now it's my responsibility to help them find that second genius. So I wanted to propose this question to you guys for weeks. How do we find our second genius on the Rutgers Rant? Because we've clearly already reached the first with the success of what we're doing here.
It's a great question. Yeah. Genius is not a word I usually associate with our podcast. Brian, what do you think?
I was going to say I still need to find my first genius. So, but Pat's being so complimentary that I'm a genius. I didn't even know it. So
you've already found it, man. Who knew?
I think I agree with, he has like good sayings and he says the right things. He knows how to speak. I think that we're underestimating how prepared he might be to handle at least the political side of all of this, right? We like to talk about New Jersey as a political state. From what I've read, I should say, about the Louisiana political back and forth, that New Jersey might be child's play compared to that. So I think he'll be prepared for that. And that's not half the battle, but that's a significant part of his job. So I think he'll be prepared, or at least coming in with eyes wide open.
Oh, absolutely. That's something any university president has to navigate, that side of it. It's not just about, being as someone once said, being a Shakespeare guy and understanding the educational part of this. You've got to be able to navigate that part, that the political, the politics, and it's a national thing. And it might be one reason why it's certainly one reason why Jonathan Holloway didn't want to do this anymore. I want one last point on this. I'd be very curious to see. There's another side to having a president who wants to be involved. Like, I think we're overlooking the fact that Jonathan Holloway was in a lot of ways the perfect president for athletics, in that he was, okay, we're going to spend a lot, we're going to lose money, I don't care, go to it. He was like, and I'll catch a punt at the spring game. He was not involved in the day-to-day stuff. He left that to other people, maybe to a fault, based on what happened with Pat Hobbs. Like, you're looking the other way, you're not paying close enough attention, and all of a sudden, your AD is resigning for heart issues. Right, maybe to a fault, but there's another side of it for him being involved. And I'm curious: is Greg Shannon going to have a boss for the first time? He's never had one at Rutgers. Is this what this is? Is Steve Pikiell going to have someone not just sitting at basketball games and watching, but sitting at basketball games saying, well, "Why you guys 15 and 17?" It's a fascinating other side of it. That's what I'll say about that. I'm curious if he's going to be that kind of president.
Yeah, I think a lot of that will be answered in how involved he is with the selection of the athletic director. If he's, overly involved and wants to find the right guy in his mind, that's step one, is finding the right guy in that job to delineate responsibilities.
Yeah. I think we will know. We will know in a week. We'll have an answer behind the scenes. If there's not an AD here soon, to me, that signals that William Tate said, he looked at what the search committee came back. Here, we've been working on this for 9 months, sir. Here's our candidates. And he went, nah. And in some ways, it'd be pretty, pretty ballsy. It's good for him. All right. Football news. Let's do it. Greg Schiano on the sidewalks of Manhattan with Shaquille O'Neal, Shaqano, as I put in our notes for the podcast. I wish I'd used that someone better than this. This is the yearly thing now. He killed, like, spring is Greg Schiano's best season. The only way to put it, he kills it. He goes out, he recruits, 7 recruits in 3 days, 14th best recruiting class in the country. It's not going to end there. We all know that, but they've kind of figured it out this time of year. And looking at the recruits, looking at the names, looking at the positions. I don't know. Pretty good start.
They got a quarterback, right? They've had a quarterback before. Gavin Sudowar decommitted and now is committed to Missouri. But now they have a quarterback, which is always good. I'm a little, not convinced considering the other schools that were pursuing him. I think Rutgers is the only Power 5 school after him, so that may say something. But anyway, I think to your larger point about the class, I think Greg Schiano's clearly started targeting kids early on and trying to get them to commit early and not look at other schools, right? This is the first official visit weekend of the summer, and they've had 7 commits, right? So you get them to commit now. They don't go see other schools. They're locked in. That was clearly a strategy last year. To your point, last year at this point, right around this point, they were a top 10 class. They finished 33rd. That's probably going to trend the same way when other teams fill in their classes. But 33rd is pretty good for Rutgers, right? That's right about where you want to be. Maybe some classes 25, some classes 35, but that's the range you want to be. And you create that class by starting off strong here, and then kind of, usually it felt like recruiting was inverse. You get your best players towards the end of the cycle. Mm-hmm. Now you really want to start top heavy and kind of fill in the rest.
Right. Pat, this is my analysis of this, and tell me if you agree. It seems like the pipeline, like Greg Shannon talks about the pipeline, it's going to be shaped differently from now on. Like, just think of it like you got a bigger entrance and a smaller exit on this thing. Like, when you see him take 5 offensive linemen already in this class, they're not all getting to the end. And they recognize and they recognize that, and that's a good thing. And the developmental program, like if they can get 3 backups, 3 good guys out of this, and then gets them out of the portal, that's the new way of doing this.
Yeah, you're playing the numbers game exactly to the point that you're saying, is that you got to take your chances. Maybe one of those players pans out, maybe 2 of them ultimately leave. So you have to play the numbers game, understand how it all philosophically fits what you want to do, how you want to keep the back end of that pipeline loaded with veteran experienced guys that they've pulled out of the transfer portal, that they've paid a lot of money to and dedicated a lot of resources to getting guys that have been proven experienced players, maybe albeit at a James, like I'm thinking of like Eric O'Neal, right? A guy who had 13 sacks last year, right? It has gone out there and done it, albeit at a lesser level. And what it also says to me, that Schiano has always been a great recruiter, and the thing that everyone says is just it comes back to the relationships. And this guy is one of those guys that can go into a living room, sell his vision better than a lot of people, and does it early, and gets people to believe in him. I've sat in press conferences where we've listened, and I can feel that inspiration sometimes. I think he just has a really good winning way about it from that aspect. So terrific recruiter. To your point, like this is his best season is certainly right around now.
Xavier Stearns, the quarterback's name, 6'5", 215. I raised my eyebrows too, Brian, I always look at that first, who you're competing against. But along these lines, if this is a Kirk Shiraka looked at this guy on film, met him, saw something there, and says, hey, in 3 years, he could be our quarterback. I think that's what you're looking at now. Like, let's take a guy, let's get him in here so that when AJ Surace is done, we have someone in, like, he's not going to play next year. He's not going to play the year out. Like 2028 is what we're looking at here with him being a factor. And if he's not good enough, he'll be at Hofstra, like that'll be it. Like they'll identify that pretty quickly. I think that's the philosophy now. Without talking to anybody about this is the sense I get.
Yeah, look, and to be clear, like he camped at Rutgers last summer, and Kirk Shiraka liked what he saw from him, so they've always kind of kept tabs on him. Kirk Shiraka watched them throw this spring, and they identified him as the guy they wanted, right? The thing is, obviously, quarterback recruiting wraps up earlier than every other position because you want to have your quarterback for the class. But to your point, in an ideal world, after Ethan Kaliakmanis graduates this year, AJ Surace is your starting quarterback next year, the year after, and probably the year after that in an ideal world. So, yes. Maybe it's
or an ideal world, he's going pro after this. Like if he's that good that he is like, oh, you're wishing him well. Yeah. But
correct. Right. But I guess the point being that it's hard to convince a kid who thinks he can play as a freshman or as a redshirt freshman to come here when in an ideal world, the way I'm assuming Rutgers is planning is that AJ Surace will be the guy for the next couple of years. So that might play into it as well.
Right. All right. The other piece of news, schedule is out and looks pretty good. If you're a Rutgers fan, I think you have to be pretty happy with a lot of the game times, especially if you hate noon games. I kind of like noon games now because I'm old. But if you're not old and you like noon game, you like noon starts and you don't like loud music or the horn at games. Anyway, 8 o'clock for Iowa Friday night. That to me was the biggest one. You see if they're 3-0 and after non-conference, and you can repeat the same atmosphere you had for Washington a year ago. You get off to the fast start. That's the key to the season. So that was a good time. And Washington on the other side of it too. That way out, you fly to the West Coast and you're starting at 9 p.m. out there. Interesting. What do you guys think?
Much like last year, the Iowa game sets up to like, if you beat Iowa, which is going to be an accessible opponent. It's like Iowa's this juggernaut team, right? Like, they're going to be beatable. You start off 4-0. Then you go to Minnesota, a team you've beaten last year, another accessible team. If you beat them, you're 5-0, right? Yeah. You're one right about there to go to a bowl game, right? Which is the ultimate goal of the season. And then you feel really good about some of the challenging games later in the season when you have homecoming against Oregon at 7 o'clock, a 7 o'clock kickoff for homecoming. and you're 6-0, 5-1, whatever, you feel pretty good about that game. I'm just saying. Upset alert, maybe.
Upset alert against Oregon. Here we go. I love it.
We're
June
back.
3rd.
We're back. We are
baby.
back.
There's the genius you're talking about, Pat, right there. Ooh, man,
that's it.
Smoking. The smoke
We're
coming.
running it back from last year, 11-2.
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right, but I mean, looking at it again, if you can get through that stretch, Iowa, Minnesota, and Washington at 2-1, that'd be pretty good. You would be happy. You'd be tickled. You'd be sitting there at 5-1, assuming you take care of business against the Ohios. Then it sets up. Then you're in a bowl. You should be in a bowl because the back end of the schedule is tough. I mean, not Purdue, but certainly Illinois. It's going to be good. Maryland's down, but then you finish with 2 playoff contenders, Ohio State, Penn State. So, I don't know. Interesting.
I do want to say, on the opposite side of my optimism about Oregon, like this stretch has been ended over the last couple of years, but for like a 14-year stretch, at least one MAC team beat a Big Ten team every year for like 14 years. And Rutgers is playing 2 of them. Talk about the numbers game. That kind of increases your odds of being upset. So before we start dreaming about a homecoming upset of Oregon, Rutgers has to take care of business, like you said.
It's going to be 13-10 in the third quarter against one of those teams. That I would bet my life on that. Like, certainly, absolutely, yeah. There's no.
These were good MAC teams too. Let's not forget that.
Uh-huh.
These were strong teams the last couple of years.
But I will wonder this: like, how many can a MAC team be a good MAC team 2 years in a row in this current world? Yeah. Like, I don't like. Who the hell knows? Obviously a lot of those guys have moved on. So I think you're going to see. I have not studied the Miami Ohio roster. Sorry, the genius does not go that far here in June. But you would think that there's going to be some turnover on those teams. I don't know.
Well, to give you a Rutgers example, Rutgers poached their Ohio's best defensive end in Bradley Weaver, and then Shedrick Rhodes, who played 20 snaps at Rutgers this past year, just transferred back to Ohio and is supposed to play a big role on their offensive line. So just that exchange alone kind of explains the difference.
It does. It does. Still 13-10 and with 5 minutes left in that game. All right. Let's go basketball really quick. The Hoops roster is complete, I think. I mean, seems like is it complete? We're done? We sure?
So it is almost certainly complete. I've been told there is like a 20% chance. Like, they're keeping their options open that if something arises, they wouldn't be opposed to taking another scholarship guy. Right. So it's not that they have a guy in mind, as far as I understand. It's just that the spot's there. If they use it, they use it. If not, it'll go to a walk-on. Gotcha. So I'd say probably done, but not definitely done.
Right. European Dennis Badalou, pronouncing that correctly, 6'7", 200-pound, 18-year-old Romanian wing is the final player. All right. So, I mean, I would trust Jay Young's been pretty good at finding diamonds in the rough. He was the lead assistant on that. I'm sure this kid's got talent. I don't think you can count on him to play in the Big Ten at 18-year-old based on his size and development in this first year. So I'm assuming that's a developmental player. Let's look at it. I mean, what now that it's over, Brian, I don't know. Did you feel better about the roster than you did a month ago when we talked about it? Do you feel better about the roster than you did in the fall? I mean, how do you feel about this?
Not great, if I'm being honest. I think there's a lot more questions than there are answers. Just for this roster to be competitive in the Big Ten, there need to be a lot of things to go right? Yeah. Like, you need Byfall, I should say, the center to, play up to his high school ranking and not what he's done in college the last 2 years. You need your smaller guards, right, to play bigger than their size, right? This is a very small backcourt. You need somebody there's no real obvious point guard here, right? Like last year, Dylan Harper was the guy. There's no real obvious choice, right? You have Lino Mark, who's an incoming freshman. You have Jermichael Davis, who's been on ball, off ball. You have Tariq Francis, who really was more of a sort than a point guard. It's just the shooting was bad last year. You lose your top 4 3-point shooters. The only guy you bring in who could shoot threes is Zerno, who did it in Europe, so it's hard to really gauge. The guys you return shot like a combined 28% on threes. So, again, I have a hard time seeing this team being competitive because there's just so many things that have to go right. And this team had a losing record with 2 kids that are going to be picked in the top 5 of the NBA draft. Those kids left, and they've done nothing to come close to replacing them, let alone, getting the other positions better. I hate to be a Debbie Downer in June, but I really have a hard time seeing many positives with this collective.
Well, you just did pick the football team to upset Oregon, so I guess this offsets that. There's just no sure thing on this roster. There's nothing. There's no sure thing. Not one single thing where you can say that Rutgers at least Rutgers has that. There's not. I mean, everything's a crapshoot. You need Dylan Grant to develop. You need, again, one of these 2 centers to be good. You mentioned it already, but you need someone to prove that he can play the point guard. You need Darren Buchanan to prove last year was a fluke at George Washington. There's a million things have to happen. But Pat, I will say, at least it is, I don't know, comfort zone.
Yes.
Steve
yes.
Pikel.
The one thing you guys have not said so far is, what do these guys do defensively? I don't know. I don't have that. I don't know what this will look like. But I think it has to be better. Like, Rutgers it's not going to go out and give up 90 points next year and think it's going to win any games. These guys need to be elite defenders. So to get back to the comfort zone, to think of like a team that could be in the Pikel mold, you would think maybe that he can get this team to play great defense, play a little scrappy ball. Maybe things fall into place like that, but it's certainly not going to be the 85, 90 point games that we saw last season with the lead scorer. So maybe that's a better thing in the end. Yeah, after seeing the results of last year.
Maybe, but my questions on the defense are kind of the same in that I have no idea what they're going to do at center as far as defensively, right? Like, sure, I know Emmanuel Bole.
Yeah. Yep.
I know Emmanuel Bole is not a good defensive center. We know that, right? I don't know if Fall is going to be a good defensive center. I have no way of knowing. The guy barely played in college, and sure, he has the size. Does he have the strength? Does he have the understanding of Steve Pikel's defense after 4 months in the system? It's impossible to know. Then in the backcourt, again, everyone is undersized. You have a 6'1" freshman. You have a 6 foot guy in Tariq Francis. You have a 6 foot guy in JaMychal Davis. And then on the wing, it's not like you have these, Caleb McConnell sized guys to make up for the lack of size in the backcourt. You don't. Like, if you are believing that this team will be good defensively, it is, again, blind faith that Steve Pikel can get them to do that, which I would have bought a year ago, because I did buy that he would get that group to play defense last year. Yeah. And, when you hear him talk all season about having a hard time implementing his defense because he's only been with these guys for, 8 months, why would it be easier this time around with less talent, right?
That's a great point.
To convince yourself that this team will be good in anything really is a leap of faith. And whether you want to take that leap of faith is a personal choice. I personally have a hard time, after seeing what I did last year, giving anybody a benefit of the doubt. And we could be wrong. I said in a previous pod that this team will finish last in the Big Ten. Maybe they won't. I mean, I'm not writing that in stone. Penn State looks horrid. They could easily become last place. But I am very confident that this team will, at best, be scrapping and clawing to make it into the Big Ten tournament in the first week of March.
Where we're sitting right now, it's hard to disagree with that. It really is. I'm with you 100%. All right. Luckily, we got 3 months, 6 months to talk more about that. Football will be here soon, so we can talk about that. All right. Questions. Let's go through. Thank you for people who are still on our Discord. It's been kind of quiet in there, understandably so. It's been quiet in the world, or on Twitter at Rutgers Rant, our Twitter account, X account, whatever the hell they call it. We get this question every podcast. Any update on the GM job? What a joke. There's my update. This just the GM job has become a freaking joke. I mean, come on. This is what this reminds me of, fellas. It reminds me of Umi Salim Beasley when, like, at the end we're like, well, they fired her yet? And we kept on asking, and then I just stopped asking because it's good. It's gonna, like, I'm just tired of the question. I'm done with it. If they wanted the GM, they would have hired the GM. I mean, it's just ridiculous. What a joke. There you go. There's my update.
Well, the update was a couple weeks ago. They posted a job for someone who's more of like a salary cap kind of guy. And
yeah, it's not the GM though. Right.
It's not the GM. It's a separate position entirely, someone who will work with compliance and do like the logistical back end stuff. The GM job hasn't even been posted yet, again, which is crazy.
It's insane.
The only logical reasoning would be that they want to hire an AD so that their boss knows the president theory, right? The president, the AD will know who his president is, and then the GM will know who his AD is, who his president is, and then eventually they'll just keep working all their way down. That's my only, because otherwise, I agree with you. What the hell are they doing? Like, what's the?
It's ridiculous.
And you start thinking like, are they even going to hire a GM? Like that? That's what I'm starting to think. Like,
I totally feel that way too. And it goes back. They didn't make any staff changes at all in basketball. He is just, okay, we're just going to roll the balls out there again. And I don't know. It's just, I mean, look, right? I mean, look what's going on. Yeah, it's funny. And I mean, you could take what Danny Breslauer was doing on like just on his tweet, like the stuff he was saying on Twitter. Maybe you could bring someone like him in, and at least you would have someone doing something to further the basketball program during these. We've been talking about this now for 2 months. Like, right? I mean, when did Ryan Bassari tell me we're going to hire GM? That was like in February.
Right. Again, the moment they didn't hire one in February or January, it really made it a moot point to hire them at any point before.
But now
August.
we're starting to build next year's team. Someone's got to be identifying players. Someone's got to be, getting ready for
building
that.
relationships over the summer, taking trips to Europe like Woj does, or going to AAU events. And yes, I agree. In an ideal world, they'd have a GM hired 2 months ago. I don't know. I have a really hard time explaining any of this stuff.
It is a freaking joke.
It was it feels like more window dressing. So when you are in February and the team is terribly underperforming, what's something we could do better to improve the situation for next year? Oh, we'll hire a GM that'll fix the issues that plague this team. But maybe people will forget about it, right? But
Yes, of course. As long as people stop asking us about it, we will not talk about it again, because it's one of those things like, didn't happen. Oh well. Just Rutgers being Rutgers. All right. Got a question. Is the new president better than the old one? Clash Bandicoot on the X. I don't know. I mean, it's different personality, different background, different type of guy. I think we're going to find out. Jonathan Holloway's legacy here is mixed. I think people will look at him overall. A lot of people feel like he screwed up how he handled the strike at Rutgers, how he handled the protests at Rutgers. I don't know. It's a very tough job for both of those situations, and I can understand both sides of it. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens when he gets into the similar kind of crisis, because that's how his overall presidency will be defined. For athletics, I think you can say that he will be equal or better.
Yeah, I think that's summed up pretty well. Like, what was Tate's legacy leaving LSU? That's my big question. What did he do at LSU that was so exponentially great that made him a leading candidate for the Rutgers job? That's one thing I've had in the back of my mind.
That's a great question. The second part of that is why
sports were tremendous. Sports were probably the best. If you think of all the national championships, that LSU wins, right? Athletics great,
good.
But
yeah, they were already good. It was LSU.
Sure.
Why did he leave LSU was the question I had, and I understand the political situation down there is tough for someone, in the university situation, but I don't think that question was answered. I don't know. That to me was the one thing that kept on coming back to me. People kept on asking me that too. Do you know why? It's like, I don't know why. So it's interesting. All right. More football questions. A lot of people want to know our thoughts on the over-under. What are realistic expectations for you of Rutgers going in 2025? Can Shanna and company go over the 5.5 win total per FanDuel? Yeah, I think that's a yes. I would hammer that. And I mean, hammer it. I would certainly think that yes, they especially if you get through the first 3 non-conference games, you look at it, I think Purdue's bad, Maryland's down. There's opportunities there to get, and I get it. There's 4 L's sitting there on the schedule, but I think you could get over 5-5. You guys agree?
What was it last year? The line was
same.
It was also 5.5. I remember sitting in this chair last year. Oh my God, that's going to be the easiest over of all time.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And I feel like falling into the same trap of, again, like it seems too low, but I think this is a very, this is a team that should be 7-5, 6-6 again. Like I think that's very much where they're at. Lost a lot, but I think the offense was so good by the end of the year. I think they've really turned the corner there.
I think these bookmakers earn their money. This is the best line of all time because like I have a really hard time, answering this question. So I think if we assume they beat the two MAC teams in Norfolk State, right? That's because if they lose either one of those, obviously it's going to hit the under. Yeah. Now we're assuming they win those three. You have 9 games left. 3 of them, despite my joking earlier, they're not going to win. They're not going to beat Oregon, Ohio State, or Penn State, right? Barring a shocking turn of events. So then you have 5 games left that I would argue are winnable, right? Can they win 3 of those 5 games? A majority of their winnable games.
Like 3 of 6 at that point. You've ruled out, there's 9 Big Ten games. You've ruled out 3 of them, 3 of 6.
My math is not good. Yeah. You are correct. So can they win half of their winnable games, which are, to refresh the audience, home against Iowa, at Minnesota, at Washington, on the road to Purdue, on the road to Illinois, and home against Maryland? Right. I say yes.
Yeah.
I think there are 2 easy wins, Maryland and Purdue. I think you have to win
easy
those 2
wins?
games because those teams are going to stink. Like out loud. They're going to stink.
Probably.
Maryland
has not been an easy win for the Scarlet Knights if you haven't noticed the last few times.
They beat them last year.
Yeah.
They beat them last year when they were decent. They had an all Big Ten receiver and they still beat them. So let's assume they win those 2 easy games. We're doing a lot of assuming here, but that's what we do on the Rutgers Rant. So that's 5 wins. Can they get one more win against Minnesota, Iowa, Washington, Illinois? I mean, yes, right? I mean, if they don't,
yep. To steal the phrase of the show, you play the numbers game here, right? Last year you had the Rutgers should not have beat Washington last season. Completely outplayed in that game. To steal that one was a great win. On the other side, Michigan State or
UCLA. Yeah.
No. What was the timeout? The timeout.
Oh, Illinois.
Illinois. Yeah. That was the other side. The timeout.
But Illinois was better than them too, though.
Sure.
And we'll be better than them this year. I mean, they would be a touchdown underdog to Illinois. A 10-point could be. I mean, right now if they slide up, right? No.
A touchdown is probably the upper limit of the line, I'd guess.
Okay.
It's on the road, to be fair. Maybe you're right, 10 points, but 10 feels like a lot. I don't think Illinois is that good.
Okay.
Illinois' over-under is 7.5. So
that's significant. That's a big difference than 5.5. 2.
How about
there's the genius at work again?
This guy's fallen out of his chair 3 times on this show already.
Yeah, I've missed you guys.
That's what a month off does.
I've been sitting here talking to myself this entire while you guys are out vacationing. All right.
How about the last Big Ten over under? I saw this number. I almost fainted.
Okay.
Indiana, 8.5.
Oh,
8.5.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Come on. They're not going to do that.
Hammering the under?
I'm hammering the under. I didn't even look at the schedule. I'm hammering the under. Absolutely. Hammer it.
I reserve all Indiana comments for the rest of my life after I still get DMs about it.
That's great. That's good. The internet never forgets. That's wonderful. All right. Along this line, someone wanted to know on the Discord, beyond the football schedule, what is the biggest weakness for the fall that puts football at 5 to 6 wins? What is the one thing that's going to keep them from getting to the over? Pass rush too obvious?
It's a fair question. That's one of those things like you don't believe it until you see it. You might have these productive guys from lower levels, but Rutgers not had a pass rush for 11 years. So that's a fair shout.
I would say the pass defense the last couple of years was really strong. Longer beam, Melton. I have some questions about, can they cover? Are we going to see another Kansas State game where Rutgers is going to have to win, scoring 40 points? That would be my biggest concern. How well did Rutgers retool its secondary?
That's a good.
I guess along those. Sorry. I guess along those lines, I'd go linebacker, just because you lose Mo Toure and you have one proven guy in Daryl Jabomi. You have a second guy who can kind of fit in. And along the same lines, left tackle, you lose Holland Pierce, who I think we will only understand his value to this program in the fall, because he was a guy that no one really talked about, but he was so important. Will they be able to fill in for him, whether that's one of the many, talk about, again, numbers game. We'll stop using that phrase forever after this, but they added, 100 offensive linemen over the portal, it seems like. Can either of those guys, Tyler Needham, Taj White, fill in? I think even at the best case scenario, you lose a little bit from what Holland Pierce gave you. So those two spots to me are question marks.
And it's amazing. We went through this whole thing and no one mentioned that, as great a Kyle Monungai was for the last couple of years, right? Like, you just feel good about the running game because we've seen these guys produce. Antoine Raymond, feels like he can just step up into that role, but losing Monungai, that's another one. Like, how do you replace a guy that was just so fundamentally important on your team?
Yeah, you're losing your best two offensive players, and we feel better about the offense than we do about the defense. So
great point.
There was a very interesting stat. I can't remember exactly where I saw it, but it said that Ethan Kaliakmanis threw more passes of 10 plus air yards than pretty much. I think there was 5 other quarterbacks in the country that threw as much as him, that threw it deep, right? And they had an interesting point of Kyle Monungai had so much gravity, teams had to respect him, so they had to stuff the box, which opens up the pass game, right? Will whoever the running back is now be able to open things up as much as he did? And even when they stuffed the box against him, he broke so many tackles, right, that it didn't matter. So I think his importance to the offense is in so much more multifaceted than we even thought about. So that's a great point from you, Pat, because the offense was based around Kyle. Yeah. He made the quarterback better, the receivers better, the line look better, himself look better. So it's gonna be. Did you guys see the clip of him at the Bears practice going through a drill, and an assistant coach said he was running like an old ass man? I don't know if you guys saw that.
No, wow. Huh.
He was the 5th guy in line, and to be fair, he did look like an old ass man. It looked like all those carries he had at Rutgers kind of caught up to him, and his hips hurt a little bit. I thought that was just a funny clip.
Oh man, I'm still taking him in the 15th round of my fantasy draft. I don't care what anybody says. All right, one more question along football. Another over-under sort of thing. Do you expect immediate impact from transfers Eric O'Neill and Bradley Weaver? How well do you see their pass rush abilities translating to the Big Ten, given they had 13 and 8.5 sacks for their previous teams in 24, while Rutgers had 22 as a team? Wow, interesting. I think you would take, if you could get 10 sacks from those two guys, you feel great. Just give me some pressure. Forget sacks.
Combined?
Give me some 10 combined. Good grief, 8 to 10.
Well, Rutgers hasn't had a guy with 5 sacks at least in a season since JPO in 2016.
Wow, really?
So yes. So if you get 2 guys with 5 sacks, that would be, I agree, a very successful season.
Huh. Wild.
What's amazing too? We've talked about it so many times in this podcast, that how good Aaron Lewis was at getting to the quarterback and not finishing the play.
Yeah.
The pressure rates for Rutgers the last couple of years have been good. It's just I don't know. There's something there. There was just something there.
Yep.
So maybe the step up in competition could be significant. But even if you cut those numbers in half, like you said, that's a great year.
I'm curious with Eric O'Neill, just as far as the size, right? He's not exactly a prototypical big edge rusher. Is he going to be able to, beat these guys with speed or whatever? That's my one question with him. Bradley Weaver, the size, he obviously didn't play in the spring game, so we didn't see him, but just looking at him in person, he looks like he has the size. I'm a little bit more confident in him. Eric O'Neill obviously is the more productive one, but I think I have a little bit more questions about him than the other.
We'll find out soon enough. All right, one last football hypothetical. If Greg Schiano doesn't leave to take the Tampa Bay job in 2012, is he the head coach of Rutgers today? I love these hypos. This is from the Discord. It turned into a very long discussion. You should go see it. If you're not on our Discord, please send us an invitation request, and we will grant that to you immediately or send you the passcode. I don't know how you get on there at this point. Anyway, that's a good one. I think the answer to that, if I had to guess, was no. It's just because it's just a long freaking time. So he'd have to go through all the transition. He'd have to go through. It's just a long time to have a job. He would have been here for 25 years now. Man, how many coaches last 25 years anywhere in this day and age? I get it. Joe Paterno. I get it. The guys did it back in the day, but that's a lot.
It's why you think that's why when last year or every time the Kirk Ferentz question comes up, like Greg Schiano says, this is how you build a program, and the sustainability is what we aspire for. So Frank Beamer, that came up last year too, right? Of Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I agree with you. I agree with you though, Politi.
Right.
Like 25 years at a place like Rutgers, that's tough. That's tough.
The other part of it is, Brian, I mean, those years away made him a different coach. You have to take that in consideration. Not only did he have time at Ohio State, he was a head coach in the NFL. He had a couple of years off where you charge your batteries and you look at how you do things. He's not the same coach he was the first time around in a lot of different ways. He's the same person. You can't rewire your personality. But I think that's a factor here too. You have to think about.
Yeah, and it's why he's so prepared for this modern era and changing, right? His experience in the NFL prepares him for roster building in this modern era, and his time with Urban Meyer, I don't know if taught him because he knew this already, but really reinforced the idea that recruiting is essentially the lifeblood of a program, and to have a successful program, you have to recruit really well. So having those two influences, which he wouldn't have had he left Rutgers, certainly made him more equipped coach for today's modern age. I think Kirk Ferentz is really if you want to believe that he would, Kirk Ferentz is the model to follow. And I think his admiration for Kirk Ferentz tells me that it certainly would be possible. I guess logically, the only two ways he would not be the coach would be if he left for another job or he retired. I cannot foresee a scenario where he would have gotten fired as the Rutgers head coach, right? No matter if things went bad when he went into the Big Ten. So do you think either of those two are likely? If he wouldn't have left for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2012, I can't imagine he'd leave for another NFL job. One, because I don't know if he'd want to, and two, I don't know if he'd be as attractive as a name, right? Because he was red hot at that time.'d have to assume that he'd continue on that upward trajectory for him to get another NFL job. So I don't know. There's a lot of questions to know the answer to this, but I think I'd say no. I should say I think he would still be the head coach at Rutgers today. I just can't envision him anywhere else.
Yeah, I guess it depends on that first year, and that's the key. Like he left. If he had left 1 year later, Rutgers football could be in a different. Like he left just at the moment when that was cooking. When that one season, he had his best team. He left his best team behind in a lot of ways. I would have loved to have seen Greg Schiano coach that team that Kyle Flood inherited. It would be fascinating to see what would happen there. Well, but he'd have to go through all those struggles in the early years in the Big Ten. I mean, what would have happened? Look about what if Greg Schiano was still here? Would Julie Herman have been hired athletic director? Would Tim Pernetti have been fired? I mean, there's so many things, so many what ifs with this one domino, the sliding doors, the butterfly effect, whatever 1990s movie.
Here's the butterfly effect that probably came up in the thread of conversation. One of the great what ifs is that everyone loves to say, well, what if Saquon Barkley didn't go to Penn State and went to Rutgers instead? Greg Schiano was his coach, right? Like, what if all these guys that were great New Jersey players stayed home at Rutgers and played for the Scarlet Knights? And this was a program that, Jabril Peppers went to Rutgers, right? Like Greg Schiano was getting those kind of guys.
Yeah.
That's I love that one.
Well, you'd think that Greg would win the Big East in 2012. You'd hope he would, right? You'd hope he'd be a little bit better than Kyle Flood and win the Big East. That would transition to more recruiting momentum, right? He'd take that 2011 class or 2012 class and have a better class. And then he'd go into the Big Ten. If Kyle Flood won 8 games in the Big Ten, you'd think Greg could maybe win 9. And then to your point, Pat, like that is momentum begets momentum. And then you get Saquon Barkley and you get Peppers and you can you wouldn't probably compete for a Big East title because of the way that Big Ten East title, I should say, because Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan were all juggernauts. But you'd think that Rutgers would never reach the depths it reached under Chris Ash.
No, totally. The shit wouldn't have fallen apart the way it did under Kyle Flood. Like the little things, the cracks that, I always remember at the time thinking that like Greg Schiano was holding together like 1,000 threads and Kyle Flood let 7 of them go and the whole thing fell apart. Like that was it. Like it just, that he would have none of that would have happened. The program would have certainly stayed at that same level. I just do wonder, and we're still waiting for it to happen. Like, would it have taken the next step? And if it didn't take the next step, we certainly could not have been here. Like if Rutgers didn't get that great season, not the good season, like another 2006, essentially, only with a better bowl destination. I mean, People, can you imagine that if it was just a string of 8 and 4s, 7 and 5s? I mean, great. Yeah, I love it. Believe me, better than El Turf, better than 2 and 10. But it's also, it's the Steve Peichel thing that he talked to me. You set expectations, eventually at a certain level, people expect you to be higher than it. And when you don't get there, it's a different look. So fascinating though. Is it the greatest what if in Rutgers in sports history?
Yes.
Or is it joining the Big East in the early 80s if they had done that? That's a pretty good one too. If Dick Vitale had been hired as the head coach in the 70s, that's a good one too.
If they had won more national championships in the 1870s, right when they were at the peak of their powers.
That's a good one too. If they beaten Princeton the second time. Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a lot of what ifs. Man,
that's good.
If
what's his face, Gary Waters didn't get stuck in that snowstorm, would he still be the coach? If Fred Hill didn't, do whatever Fred Hill did, if Mike Rice didn't, wasn't a raging,
they fired Mike Rice the moment they saw that tape. Yeah. All right. Let's wrap this up. What else? I know what else. The best. We have 55 minutes. We haven't talked about the best team at Rutgers this year. Rowing. 8th in the nation, baby. Number 8. Ain't gonna top that. That's high. That's. Let me look at that. That's in the top 10. 8, right? That's the best.
Yes,
best team in the country.
Really good.
That's good.
Really
good for them. Congratulations, ladies. I think that's the answer to the question. What was the best team in Rutgers this year? I mean, you gonna give me another choice than that?
No
shot.
There you go.
Is there going to be a parade on the Raritan? Are fans going to pull up for the?
It's a rowing school. It's always been a row. Upstream, downstream. How's the song go again? Upstream
red team. Yeah,
red team. Yeah, there you go.
Pink Pony Club. I want to keep on dancing.
I'm stunned that we got this far before that you're singing it. So Pat told us that's why his voice is broken. He was in Ernest Hemingway's backyard screaming Pink Pony Club at the top of his lungs.
Yeah.
That's just, I love it, man. All right. Anything else we got to wrap up with? Baseball season's a wrap. No. Track did pretty well. Making it up, pulling up. All right.
Chloe Timberg.
Not great.
Oh.
Actually.
Nope.
Yeah,
really?
Not great. Chloe did great. Overall team success was not great.
Okay.
Chloe could still win a national championship. Yes, she's still alive.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's this weekend. Okay.
All right. We'll be back to discuss that. Riley Tiernan carrying it up into NWSL. Big news. That's it. That's all we got. Thanks for listening. I hope we're back next time to talk about the new Rutgers athletic director, because we've waited a long time. And hopefully by then, Pat's voice is back into proper form where he can sing Pink Pony Club in the falsetto tones that it deserves. Thanks.